Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of adventure. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy, means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment you are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. As you can see, I am not alone. I have an amazing guest. She goes by the name of Samar Owais. How's it going today?
Hey, Tom. Going pretty good.
Thanks so
How
much.
are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I just want to thank you for, taking the time and leap of faith, responding to a random guy named Tom saying, hey, will you sit down for an interview? So I appreciate that so much.
You're most welcome.
So the folks on here, they know about me already. So why don't we jump in? Can you share a little bit about who you are, what you do, anything you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Samar. I am an email conversion strategist and copywriter for SaaS and e-commerce brands. And I have worked with clients like copy hackers, um, been trained by copy hackers as well as Val Geisler, and B2B SaaS companies like Workamagic and email marketing agencies like Longplay. And so I've written copy for anywhere from uh, project management softwares to CBD brands. And I have loved every minute of it ever since I discovered emails. So yeah, that's the long and short of it.
I love that. So when you were growing up, were you like, when I grow up, I want to be an email conversion expert?
Absolutely not. Like I didn't even want to be a writer or know that I wanted to be a writer, right? I don't remember thinking that I wanted to be something. I just remember thinking that I have to work and get a job, right? That was like my ultimate goal for getting whatever education that I ended up getting. And so turns out 10 days after my graduation, I get married and move to the UAE. And I just got graduated. The idea was to start working, something that I'd been working towards. And every time I would go to an interview, and this was in 2008, so the recession hadn't hit yet in the UAE, right? And every time I would go sit at an interview, they'd ask me like, okay, sure, this is all great. Do you have a driver's license? And I would be like, I don't, I just moved here, but I can get it. And they would always just smile and have that little slight smirk and say, all right, then we'll talk again once you have it. And I finally complained to my husband. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And he was like, I better, get you enrolled in those classes then. And so we went, and just to start my driving lessons, there was a 6-month wait. And so I knew that I wasn't getting a job anytime soon. And so I sat at home waiting to start my driving lessons, and I was super bored. So randomly, I did a Google search, right? Online writing jobs. And I used to blog back when I used to live in Karachi. And so I knew that I had writing skills. I figured, you know what? If I could volunteer for a blog, there might be people willing to pay for it as well. And so I Googled writing jobs online, found a website that was paying $10 an article, thought I had hit pay dirt. What I'd really hit was a content mill. And so I started writing for $10 an article. Didn't take me long to figure out that I was stuck in a rut. And then I started working, doing my research, talking to people, working my way up. And eventually went on to write for brands like Marriott, Intercontinental, Interglobal PMI. Back then it was called that. Now I think that's Aetna. And so I got my start as a freelancer in blogging and ebook writing. And 10 years later, I was severely burned out. Like I was not finding joy in my work. And so I was at my wit's end, right? I kept raising my rates, hoping somebody would say no. And I had hit $1,000 per blog post, and clients were still saying yes. And I was like, something is wrong. Like, I don't enjoy my days anymore. I don't feel like working anymore. I need to get smarter about business because I've mastered the writing side of it. And so around that time, Joanna Weeb of Copy Hackers was launching her 10X FC mini mastermind program. And it was purely about learning how to run a business, a profitable business. And I enrolled thinking, hey, if there's somebody who can teach me how to run a business and be excited about it, it's going to be Joe. And so I started doing the work in the course and realized the problem wasn't that I was burned out. The problem was that I was done writing content. Because those $1,000 blog posts, as sweet as they sound, they required 30 to 35 hours of putting together just a single blog post. And it just wasn't worth it. Because at that rate, clients kind of want the sun and the moon with the blog post. So, and the sun and the moon take long hours. And so I started experimenting with other kinds of copy. I tried my hand at sales pages. I did not like it. I tried my hand at landing pages. I was okay with it, but again, did not enjoy it. Website copy literally made me cry. And so around that time, Val Geiser was in the mastermind with me, and she was growing because she was doing all the work that Jer was telling us to do. And she put out a call saying, I have more work than I can handle, and I'm looking for subcontractors. So I reached out to her and I said, listen, I've never written emails before, but I'm a fast learner. I don't make the same mistake twice, and I never miss a deadline. And so she took a chance on me and gave me 2 weeks to write an email sequence. And that first week, Tom, all I did was research 4 to 6 hours a day, right? I read up and found out as much as I could about emails, and I was in heaven. Like, I couldn't wait to get out of bed in the morning and sit on my desk and work. And by the time I submitted that first email sequence to Val, I knew that I'd found my calling. And there has been no looking back since.
I love that. So I do want to jump into all the technical stuff, but
Yep.
I'm always interested in mindset, because so many people at any stage of the story you just told would come up against that obstacle, and they just stay in that for years and years and maybe don't ever get out. And yet I loved how every part of the story, when you'd hit this obstacle, you'd be able to like check in and see, is this bringing me joy? But then have that strength, that power to go for it. And if you have any self-reflections on where does that come from? How did you cultivate that? Anything you can speak to about that?
Yeah. So considering who I am, like, I'm a very visibly Muslim freelancer, I had a lot of mental baggage to deal with. And for the longest time, I wouldn't get on video or audio calls with clients because I was terrified of what their reaction is going to be. Because the few times that I did go on, I would get comments like, oh, but how come your English is so good? And I would always have to bite my tongue and be nice about it, and not, focus on the fact that that was a rude as heck question. But so that kind of just was a big mental block for me. And I've always believed in one thing, like, that's my life mantra, is that the only person I have total control over, the only thing I have total control over, is my mindset. So if I want to change something, I have to take action. And so every time I would hit that wall where I would be like, okay, I've tried everything else, and the hardest path is the only path left, that means I have to do it. And so I would go out or either ask for help or take a course and just do it. Like, I wouldn't think about the next step. I would just focus on doing what was right in front of me. And a lot of times I would say yes first and figure things out later. But before saying yes, I would know that I could do this, that I could figure this out. And if not, then I was ready to go out and ask for help instead of bungling up a project. So that has kind of just always led me when it comes to making pivots or, doing difficult things in my business.
So if you don't mind, I'd love to jump into the first part you started talking about. Nobody
sure.
can tell because I'm a white guy. My name's Tom, but I'm also Muslim. So nobody ever assumes that.
Yeah.
But, a lot of my audience are also Muslim and Muslim women and hijabis as well. And so might be resonating with what you had started to talk about, that barrier of Islamophobia or sexism and discrimination, getting into the workplace, especially as a freelancer or entrepreneur. It's usually, you already know this, but I'm explaining to people who don't. It's very white male dominated, like every other field. All the gurus and podcast experts they look like me. So can you speak to maybe somebody who's resonating with that, what you're talking about, how you worked through that, how you still owned your identity, your Islam, and still moved forward
Yeah. So as a hijabi, one thing that was easy for me was that I never had to talk about my identity because my identity is very visibly on me. Right. And so it was more of a fact that I would start a conversation and the other person would be like, it would be a raised eyebrow, it would be an awkward silence. And I became an expert at figuring things out if this conversation is going to go anywhere. If it's not, I kind of preserved my self-respect a lot, and I started saying no. I started walking out of calls, just politely saying I don't think this is the right fit, I'm too busy, I'll refer somebody else to you. But yeah, so I kind of accepted myself and the fact that not everybody's the right fit for me, and also just took it as a positive sign that figuring out who my right clients are is so much easier for me. I don't have to actually get into a project and then find out that somebody's anti-Muslim, right? I'm going to find that out on the discovery call. And so I stopped worrying about it and just started getting on calls. And I'll be honest, the first few calls, I was so scared. I was nervous. And I would sometimes literally read off scripts that I had prepared. But after the fifth and the sixth call, I stopped writing those scripts and I started speaking on my own. And it got easier and easier from there. And to anybody else struggling out there, believe me, there are wonderful people and clients out there. You might attract the worst kind of people in the beginning, but slowly they just would stop coming to you as you become more visible. And the people who are your kind of people, the people who appreciate you and your work and value the work that you do, and the expertise that you bring to the table, those are the kind of people that I'll start getting attracted towards you. Also, don't stop marketing. So you can't just show up and expect people to come to you. You have to keep marketing. You have to keep showing up. And unfortunately for us, it means we have to show up and make our own space. So if we let a lack of confidence keep us behind, then we're already 10 paces behind most people, right? And so if we let it stop us, then we're like way behind in the race, and that's just not it. That wasn't acceptable to me.
I love that. Thank you for speaking on that. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
So let's talk about then the marketing part. What are some mistakes, myths, anything like that, things that make you cringe that you see people are doing in their email copywriting?
Okay, so speaking of emails, right? So emails, the first thing I do is they sound too formal, they sound too stiff, and they're too brand focused or me focused. Your emails need to be focused on the person you are writing to. So think about it this way, right? The only person who loves hearing about us is our moms, nobody else. Like even our sisters and siblings would get sick of us if all we did was talk about ourselves. So, it's always, you would need whatever you want to talk about, the angle needs to be focused on your customer or your client or whoever you're writing the email for. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see. The other mistake that I see is that people are all over the place in an email, right? I have nothing against longer emails. Longer emails tend to convert more, surprisingly. But get like one idea, explore one idea in an email, write to one person in an email, and have one call to action. Now, that doesn't mean that in a 500-word email, you only have that one call to action at the end. It just means you're directing people to take that one action, whether that's a hyperlink placed thrice in your email or a button in placed two places in your email. Those are my two biggest pet peeves when it comes to getting emails from entrepreneurs and coaches and course creators.
So when it comes to copywriting, I have a decent amount of skill in Facebook ads copywriting. Yeah. For folks who feel like, I'm really good at, like you started with content writing or all these different areas, how is writing copy for an email, and specifically an email that's geared towards converting, how is it different? What should you keep in mind, being mindful of the platform that you're on?
I don't think it's different, to be honest. Because while a sales page is maybe 3,000, 5,000 words long at times, with an email, you have more than one email to get your message across. So don't cram everything into a single email. That's why we have email sequences. Plan it out. Spread out your message. Take your subscriber or whoever you're emailing on a journey, right? And so it's a conversion journey where you're taking them step by step to whatever action you want them to take. So that's the only difference when it comes to email, right? The purpose of a Facebook ad is to get a click through. The purpose of a sales page is to get a sale. The purpose of an email is to connect and convert. And so use your words to connect and then use your CTA to convert.
So let's say somebody has the ad set up, they have the sales page. Let's say they're selling a course, and then they're like, oh, crap, the email sequence. What's kind of the process that they should start to go through to create that? Like any suggestions on how many emails it should be, what it should start with?
Honestly, yeah, 5 to 7 emails. Don't get ambitious in the beginning. Start with 5 to 7 emails. And then as you see how your emails are converting, start thinking about in terms of an email journey, right? So what are the questions that a subscriber has when they click through to your ad? What promise have you made them in the ad? Make sure that whatever conversation you started in that ad is carried over to the email so that they don't feel like, jarred all of a sudden that, oh, hey, I didn't realize that this was what I was opting in for. They need to feel like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. And so if you're not sure, talk to your subscribers, find out what's important to them, find out what they were thinking when they saw your ad or clicked through it, and then just collect that data, analyze it, and write emails accordingly. Because again, if you approach it from the perspective of a conversation, then it becomes a whole lot easier to map out emails and write those emails.
What do you mean by approaching from a conversation? How are most people approaching it?
Most people are approaching it thinking, I want to make as many sales as I can, right? But we trust our friend's opinion. We trust our friends. So when a friend tells you this thing is great, you have to try it, then you have to try it. And so be that friend. Be that friend your subscribers would want to support. And be the person, earn their trust, make them learn that you are somebody who knows your worth. So provide as much value as you can so that when you do make an offer, they know that you're good for your word. Because somebody who's already invested so much, shared so much knowledge, if they're saying that the paid stuff is valuable, then people are going to buy it.
When would you say, so let's say somebody does a freebie, I opt in for the freebie. Yep. At what point would you start mentioning what the offer is, as opposed to like, here's the freebie, here's some value? When do you start mentioning, here's the product?
I would do it in the welcome email if it made sense, depending on how warm the audience is. If it's the first time they're hearing from me, then hold your horses. Just provide value for the first 3 emails and then make an offer in the 4th. So 3:1 ratio is what I follow when I doubt anything. And that's how I started with emails, right? So this is something that I learned from Joanna Weeb. For every 1 sales email that you want to send out, you have to send at least 3 content emails or high value emails. And so follow that sequence.
And then once you offer, so let's say you're doing 3 value ones, and then the 4th one is a sales email. If it's a 7 sequence email, do you continue doing that, or are you from then on?
No. So after you've made that first offer, even though you're sending, the next email is going to be a content email, let's say, there's no rule saying you can't mention the offer again. You could add a PS, or you could kind of make an entire story or share a customer story or a success story and tie that into your offer. And so there are multiple ways to approach it. As long as you're not hard selling to a cold audience, you're good. And with email, you can just always test it out.
So folks are saying you got to move to sending people text, messenger bot, voicemail drops, emails dead, let it go. What's your response on that one?
Right. So email's never dying. We've been hearing that since God knows when, and it just never seems to go away, right? So it's not going anywhere. SMS marketing, yes, I have recently been kind of converted towards it, but until I don't know much about it, in the sense where my advice to my e-commerce clients was always to focus on SMS post-purchase, right? But I did a strategy call recently, and we realized that because of the time constraints between the service bought and the service delivered, it made more sense to put the post-purchase sequence in SMS and put the upsell sequence in email. And so you can totally do SMS marketing along with email marketing. It's just make sure that when you approach it from an email journey perspective, so that a subscriber or a customer is not being bombarded with multiple messages from you at the same time, right? So if a welcome sequence is going on and you're sending them welcome SMSs, and at the same time they bought something from you and they trigger the post-purchase SMSs, then they're getting multiple SMSs from you and they might get irritated. So I know that they say SMS has 100% open rate, but I don't buy that stat, because there's no way to measure that unless you include a click and somebody clicks through that, and that's just messy. And honestly, it's not something that we should be focusing on with SMS as such when we're just building a relationship. Yes, sales are great, sales are important, but so is building a relationship and building brand loyalty.
And just for those maybe who don't know the lingo, what's SMS?
So SMS are the text messages that you receive from your a mobile service provider on your phone instead of an email or a WhatsApp message. It's that text message that you get.
So cool. Yeah, for sure. I'm signed up for a bunch of new text ones, from all the gurus, and I have tons that are not opened. So there's no way.
But at the end of the day, you're going to hit that button that says read all, and that just screws up everybody's data. And also for SMS marketing ideas, reallygoodtexts.com is a great resource. So go there, check out what kind of great SMSs people, and not so great sometimes, SMSs people are sending, and you'll have your own ideas.
So let's say somebody brings you on and they want to do your big build. What is the process that you take for research to get inside your client's head, to write in their voice? Any, kind of speaking to folks too, to share research tips they can do even for their own brand or for freelancers out there. Can you share a little bit with us your process?
Yeah. So when I'm writing email sequences for my clients, I tend to get a feel of my client's tone and voice just by talking to them and reading their content, right? I'm usually not that concerned about the client's voice as much as I'm concerned about speaking to their customers or their subscribers. So I always talk to their audience. I would schedule a few interviews, I would do surveys, and I would mine that data to make sure that we are talking about the things that are important to them. We are talking about the problems that are important to them, and we're solving those problems. So a lot of times, some of my emails will have the exact phrases that when I was interviewing a subscriber or customer, and they used it for me. And then the client gets emails like, oh, that's exactly what I've been thinking, or that's exactly the problem that we've been having. And that's when you know that your email was a success. Conversions aside, especially when it comes to onboarding emails and stuff, that stuff matters.
What are some questions that, if you can share with us, that you're asking in interviews or in surveys that give you that insight into what someone's customers are looking for?
Yeah. So one question I never change. I always start with asking what was going on in your life that brought you to use this service, or that made you decide to sign up for somebody's course and stuff like that. And so it takes them back to that moment, and they recall what was going on in their lives or their business at the point. And then when they share it, that's really just that, and that's the opening I need. So all my other questions are based on whatever they say then on that first question. And also you can ask them about what they do, what they, what the service that you're using is helping them, if at all, what problems they're facing, what challenges they're facing in their work life, maybe not as much with whatever software course they're taking, and what's going on in their business, things like that. So just get to know the user or the customer or the subscriber.
So then if we were to know, for example, okay, COVID happened and I got laid off and I just really needed something that would give me tools I could use to pivot into a new career. Me sharing that with you, what insights does that give you for now turning that into an email for future folks?
Yeah. So having that insight means that my client has an audience that has been affected by COVID, right? And so they're maybe looking for new ways to earn money. They're maybe looking for new ways to learn new skills. And so I can then go and create an email or series of emails addressing that, right? The pain that her subscribers or my clients' subscribers are feeling because of COVID. And there's so many, and depending on whether my client's offer is something that can help them, then there's just so much that we can achieve with that.
Mm. Do you talk to me about some of the things that you hear in other people's copywriting where there's a debate on, should you use questions, where it's like, are you struggling with COVID or should you not? How do you include people's pain points? If you can talk a little bit about some of those kind of things, I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, so open-ended questions are always better in interviews, customer interviews, and avoid asking yes and no questions. So if a question can be answered with a simple yes and no, avoid asking that. Because then their mind is, even if they want to provide more information, they're just going to say yes or no, and their mind would think, oh, this topic is closed, over and done with. And so they'll struggle to come up with the details that you need. So open-ended questions is the way to go.
What about though in the emails themselves? Like some people
So I tend to avoid questions in subject lines, but again, sometimes I do ask them. And if I just make sure that it's not a yes or no question. Other than that, there's no rule or law. Try it. Emails, you send emails again and again and again. So if one subject line bombs, you don't like, let's not try that format next time. You can try something else in the next email.
Do you have like any sort of template you use when you sit down to write people's emails, or do you just kind of like get the research and then go into like this zone of genius and just word vomit?
So subject line is actually the last thing that I write. I write the entire email first, and then I write the subject line. So by that point, I have 2 to 3 angles that I can try, and I never just write one subject line. Like my clients always get anywhere from 2 to 4 subject lines. And we do A/B testing a lot. Like if we decide like, oh, the subject line is good and the other one's equally good, we're like, okay, let's just test it. And a lot of times it doesn't matter what the subject line is. That's the interesting bit. It's because if the client has built trust with their subscribers, they are going to open the email anyway. So I have a SaaS client that I've been writing emails for almost a year. And they had their open rates in like late teens, early 20s when I came on. But over the year, their open rates are now hitting 50%, around 50%. And we've tried, shortening the email subject line. We've tried longer email subject lines. We've tried email subject lines that are so long that they get cut off, even on desktop, right? And nothing has been affecting the open rate. They are within the late 30s for late 40s range. And sometimes if like a topic really hits a nerve, then the open rates will go over 50. And so on an email list of 5,000 people, that is really good numbers. And so it's really just the trust that you're building, the brand loyalty that you're building. It really boils down to that at the end of the day.
What about for the main body of the email itself? Do you, when you sit down to write that main body of the email, are you just like, boom, just like free writing, or do you have some sort of template? What do you use to get those?
It at this point it feels like free writing, but I've written so many emails. There is, even before I sit down to write, I kind of have a structure in my mind, right? So how am I going to structure the opening? What do I need to talk about? When you have all the details that need to go in an email, then it's not a matter of templatizing anything. It's just a matter of getting your message across clearly. And you, as copywriters, it's our job to do that. And so it comes fairly easily. But with clients who have me on retainer over a long period of time, it kind of gets templatized anyway, because if it's an email announcing a release, a new blog post has been published, then we know that this is a teaser email. So we don't have to give them like the whole story. We just have to give them enough information that would make them want to click through. Same for content. So this is essentially for every type of content email, right? Sales emails are longer and they take more, they take more time to write, for sure. And a lot of times I will go back to the drawing board and tell my clients, listen, can I have one more day? I'm not sure this is perfect. And I will often have 2 to 3 versions of a single email. And we'll go with whatever the overall angle is and feels most natural. So I don't templatize. I write from scratch every single time. It's just that it's gotten easier over the years. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
So let's say someone they're at this point and they're listening, and the reason they started listening is because they're staring at a blank screen. They're trying to write a sales email and thought, oh, let me listen to this. I can get some tips. And they're like, I'm feeling motivated. I'm with you. I've done my research, but I don't know how to get started. I don't even know what to write. What advice would you give to them?
Tell a story. Stories are easy to tell. They get the point across and they pull in the reader. So if you don't know what to write, turn whatever you need to, you have your research, you know what needs to be included in an email, just turn it into a story. Or add like a narrative style or writing style to it. And that always kicks my copywriting gears when I'm facing a block.
I love that. So last series of questions are around getting clients. You had talked about going through a journey of finding the clients that you actually want to work with that bring you joy. What advice would you have for someone who's a freelancer or agency owner or whatever they're doing, and their genius is similar to yours, or they're a copywriter? What advice would you give them for finding clients?
Okay, so my only advice, and this goes back to me believing that I'm the only person, or my mindset is the only thing that I have full control over, right? And so I have always kind of cold pitched to clients. I pitched Joanna Weeb of Copy Hackers a project even though I was shaking in my boots. And that was kind of like a turning point for my business, because if I can pitch Joanna, who's also a mentor, nobody else scares me. And so find that scary client, ideal client, dream client, and pitch them. Like, what is the worst that's going to happen? Ask yourself that. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And that's fine, because the world has a million other businesses and you can just talk to them. Also, content marketing, guest posting is a great way to get your name out there. Get active on, like, if social media scares you or if it doesn't come naturally to you, focus on one social network at a time. Twitter comes easily to me. It didn't always. And so I focus more on Twitter, and a lot of brands now reach out to me on Twitter. So that's where 20% of my work comes in from now. Referrals. Tap into your referral network. Tell everybody and their mom what you do, right? And just tell them, like, hey, if you know somebody who needs help, let them know about me, or can you please make an introduction? It's okay to ask for help when you're just starting out.
I love that. And last thing is, let's talk about pricing for folks out there who are wondering, oh man, what do I charge? What do I do? Am I charging too little? Am I charging too much? What would you share with them?
So my pricing advice is always the same. It hasn't changed in however many years I've been in business, right? And my pricing advice is charge an amount that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning, because it could be like, pricing is subjective, especially when we're starting out. So $25 can feel like a lot of money to you, but it's not for somebody who is, maybe living in another part of the world or just starting out and for whatever reason has more experience, right? But if it's an amount that you're satisfied with, that helps you get out of bed in the morning, it's not low for you. But saying that, we know in our gut when our prices are low, or we realize, oh crap, our prices were low because the client didn't argue with us, right? They didn't negotiate. They just said a point blank yes. And that's like a classic example of saying it's time to raise my rates. But keep raising your rates until you start getting that resistance from prospects. And that's when you know that you've hit that sweet spot for now. And so when it comes to pricing, charge a rate that will help you, that will make you want to get out of bed in the morning.
I love that. Anything else you'd like to speak on that I didn't ask, or that's on your heart that you want to share with folks?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
So the most important question though is for folks who are like, yes, I want you on my team, I want you to write my emails. How can they reach out to you and learn more?
So there's my website, samarows.com. I hang out and geek out on emails all day on Twitter. And then there's my newsletter, emailsdoneright.com, where every Wednesday I talk about something or the other about SaaS or e-commerce emails.
I love it. So I want to thank you so much once again for taking the leap of faith and being on here. It really means the world to me. I really feel like you shared a ton of value with folks. And it's just great to connect with you. So thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Happy to be here.
We have one closing ritual that we always ask folks as we head out. And I'm just going to pause. Once we sign off, we have one more thing we're going to do when I say bye. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So my last question for you is, what is your invitation to people who are listening right now? What would you like to invite them to do, to consider, to be, to think about, to become? What's your invitation?
Do better, be better, serve better people. And I honestly have started speaking out a lot more, started being more vocal about the kind of marketing practices that we kind of just shrug and accept because they get conversions. But honestly, if you're a marketer, if you're a email copywriter, if you're a blogger, find clients who believe in what you believe in, who stand for what you stand for. Like, we all have accepted clients that weren't the best fit in terms of ideology, just because, it was money, they were paying us, it's fine. But if you have the luxury to choose to serve better clients. That's it.
Well said. Well, thank you so much once again. You're the best. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And to all of those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.